The story begins where the world vanished before my eyes. My favorite game, the one I'd spent thousands of hours on, shut down its servers forever. I just stood there, staring at the black screen, feeling an emptiness only a true gamer understands. I needed something more, something that would really test me, that would push me to the limit. So I started searching the deepest corners of the internet until I found a title that promised to have no end. My curiosity was piqued. Without a second thought, I chose the highest difficulty, Hell Mode, and to top it off, I selected the hardest class to master, the Summoner. The moment I hit play, the monitor didn't show a loading screen. Instead, I felt a violent suction, my body dissolved into data and was absorbed by the machine. When I woke up, I wasn't a hero in armor, I was a newborn baby. I've been reincarnated as Alan. My father, Ruden, a rough but kind-hearted man, couldn't stop smiling when he saw me. My mother, Theresia, looked at me with a tenderness I never knew in my other life. We are a family of poor farmers in a rural village, living under a feudal lord, but there is no shortage of love. My parents are only 20, so I'll probably have siblings soon. I like the idea of a big family, although my current reality is farming land and paying taxes. One night, while silence reigned in the house, I decided to try my luck. I remembered the classic isekai tropes and whispered, "Open status window." A modern holographic menu didn't appear. Instead, an ancient grimoire materialized out of nowhere. I got the scare of my life. I heard footsteps and slammed the book shut, pretending to be fast asleep before my parents entered the room. When I was sure they weren't watching me, I summoned the book again. The first page was depressing. My stats were in the lowest possible range. Normal for a baby, I guess, but on the next page was my summoning ability. I could summon H-rank creatures, insects and beasts. Suddenly, the book glowed and the pages turned by themselves. A message appeared from Elmia, the creator of this world, saying the summoner class was still in beta testing and apologizing for any inconvenience. Seriously, a beta world? I thought, but didn't care. I tried using the enchantment to summon an insect 1, 2, 10 times. Nothing. Maybe I need to create the card first, I reasoned. I visualized an H-rank insect card and it worked, but just as I was about to materialize it, I heard Teresa approaching. Back to faking it. I really fell asleep that time. The next morning, with my father chopping wood and my mother washing clothes outside, I saw my chance. I recited the spell and the room filled with luminous spiritual spheres. It was beautiful, but I had to be quick. The lights condensed and suddenly, a cat-sized grasshopper appeared before me with an unfriendly face. "Come here," I ordered with my half-developed baby voice. The bug ignored me completely and looked away. Is it dumb or what? I wondered. I checked the grimoire for any missing requirements and opened its status menu. I named it Dina. As I did, I felt a change. That little insect gave me a +1 bonus to resistance and agility. Incredible. I blurted out, "Bad idea." Teresa came running in. She saw the giant bug and with a scream of disgust, she stomped on it, instantly disintegrating it. I didn't give up. I kept practicing in secret whenever I could. Days later, I decided to try a beast. A white rat emerged from the light. Like Dina, it seemed to not have a single working neuron, but at least it was a start. I named it Mousy. Upon checking its statistics, I discovered it had a special skill called Elusive. I managed to activate the ability and suddenly, Mousy started running at full speed around me like a white blur. It got me thinking, if a simple H-rank rat can do this, what kind of legendary monsters will I control in the future? For now, my limit is 10 cards, so I wasted no time and created 10 copies of Mousy. Instantly, I felt a rush of adrenaline. My attack stats went up thanks to the accumulated buffs from the rat. With that strength boost, even at just 1 year old, I could move logs and help with firewood. But it wasn't enough. There were times when, sweaty and exhausted, I regretted choosing Hell Mode. How much easier would it have been on normal difficulty? One day my father came home covered in myoglobin and blood. Theresia got scared thinking he was hurt, but he laughed. He had been on a wild boar hunt. He proudly looked at me and asked if I wanted to see the prey. I nodded excitedly and he carried me on his shoulders to the town square. On the way I saw a flock of aleros, birds so massive they look like dinosaurs. "Those are real monsters, Alan," Dad told me. "I named you after them. I want you to be free, flying through this world with nothing stopping you." I fell asleep in his arms as we walked, but he woke me up when we arrived. In front of me was the great boar. Touching its rough skin, I felt a chill. It was immense. I seriously doubted if I would ever be able to defeat such a beast. Jeta, one of our neighbors, came to cheer on my father. The whole town treated him like a hero. Not everyone can take down a beast that size. Jeta noticed my black hair and eyes, and when I waved back, he almost fell from the shock. He couldn't believe a 1-year-old could speak so clearly. He told me I was growing much faster than his daughter, Kreda, who is my age. I asked about the boar and Jeta explained it was a C-rank monster. That helped me understand the huge gap I still have to climb. 10 months flew by. I am 1 year and 10 months old. I've been polishing my skills and finally unlocked G-rank summons. I even discovered I can fuse H and G-rank cards to create something new. I tried my new power, but a notification popped up, low MP. I thought maybe it was hunger, so I ran to the table and devoured a giant plate of food under my parents' worried gaze. I returned to my room, hoping the mana had recharged with the food, but nothing. No fusions, no new cards, low MP over and over again. I had to give up for the moment. 3 years later, having just turned 5, my body and my mana resistance finally matured enough. I took a rank G card and a rank H card and fused them. The glow was different this time, it worked. I summoned my first rank G bird, a bird I named Chappie. Its agility and strength stats were level 2, but the best thing was its ability. Voice mimicry, that would be a gold mine for tricking enemies in combat. I went out to the garden to test my new pets. First I took out Hoppy, a little hopping bird that followed me everywhere. Then Chappie. Finally, after so much effort in this hell mode, I was starting to feel like a real summoner. I asked Hoppy to start jumping from side to side. My plan was to use those erratic movements to distract any opponent in the future. Then I called Molly, a creature with an impressive digging ability. As soon as I gave the order, Molly dug a deep hole in seconds, perfect for setting traps and ambushes. I was there, lost in my fantasies as a great strategist when I took a wrong step and fell into the same hole Molly had dug. That blow brought me back to reality. I am still a kid and I can't fight anyone for real yet. It struck 3 in the afternoon and I started to get nervous. Far away I heard the voice that always puts me in a bind. It was Kreda, Cheetah's daughter, coming to play like every day. We took out our wooden swords for our daily duel. Kreda is absurdly fast and has a strength that doesn't match her age. She just ran me over without me being able to defend any of her attacks. I ended up biting the dust. Once again, I am a reincarnated expert gamer, but in this 3-year-old body, she beats me easily. My parents arrived just as we were finishing. Teresa's belly was already huge. Just as I had predicted, a little brother or sister was on the way. Ruden and mom said goodbye to Kreda and we went inside. I suggested to my father that he let me help with the harvest, since my mother shouldn't strain herself in her condition. Thanks, Alan, but no, Ruden told me with a smile. You've helped a lot in the house, but you are 3. The farm is no place for you. Though my strength is adult-like due to card buffs, I know to them I am still their little one. Teresa told me to keep playing with Kreda, and they mentioned how much we've improved at dueling. Then Dad mentioned something that intrigued me, the appraisal ceremony. He explained that at age 5, all children undergo a ritual to discover what skills they have. If someone gets a special skill, they can stop being a serf and change their fate. Ruden also asked me why I spend my time throwing stones at the tree outside. I lied, saying it was to protect us from monsters, but the truth was different. I was testing if I had any other hidden combat abilities besides summoning. The next day, while practicing summons, I could now last all day without getting tired. Kreda showed up for a duel. I lost again, as usual. Just then, Dad arrived, and Mom came out to meet him. But as bad luck would have it, the Nama I summoned jumped near her. Teresia was so scared that she tripped and fell, overwhelmed by pain. Her water broke. The baby was coming. Ruden sent Kreda to get her mother Matilda while he carried Teresia to bed. I ran to put water on to boil. Just as I announced the water was ready, Matilda arrived and kicked us men out of the room. We spent hours outside, almost falling asleep against the wall until a cry broke the silence. "It is a boy," yelled Matilda. We went in excited. My father decided to call him Mash. Teresia raised an eyebrow, asking if that wasn't also a monster's name, and my father's smile confirmed everything. Seeing my new family so happy, I wondered why I was reincarnated here. In my past life, I was just a lonely workaholic with a dull life. There is nothing I miss about that world. Here, for the first time, I feel like I belong. My only goal now is to become strong enough to get my family out of servitude. Teresa asked me to greet my brother, but as soon as I got close, Mash burst into tears. I got scared, thinking I had done something wrong, but my parents just laughed and said babies are like that. I am definitely enjoying this new life, but this is just the beginning. We'll have to see how much more I can grow. Thanks for making it to the end. Comment part 2 if you liked the video, subscribe and like to help the channel continue to grow more. 2 years have passed since then, and I was heading with Ruden to the evaluation ceremony. As he explained, this was a special event that everyone must go through at age 5, from servants to nobles. If I showed some talent, I could leave the life of servitude. Krina was my age, so she was also heading to the evaluation ceremony with her father Gerda. She was quite excited. She wanted to be named a swordswoman and thus be able to become a knight. Arriving at the commoner's village, we looked in awe at the buildings that filled the town. These were much larger and more elegant than the place where I live. We waited outside a large church for the evaluation ceremony to begin. There were several children there, also waiting with their parents. Unlike us, they all wore better clothes and also looked better groomed. Some people recognized by my dark hair and eyes that I was a servant. I found their comments quite unpleasant. Yeah, I am a servant. So what? I thought. When the doors opened, 3 reverends in white robes came out. They welcomed us by saying, "Mia, God of creation, blesses us all equally with great opportunities." They also told us that throughout history, there have been heroes who came from servitude. An example is Clasis, the saint born a commoner, and Dyberg, Lord of the Sword. He was a servant like me. Inside the church, there were statues of the three gods. The one in the middle must be Elmia, god of creation and developer of the game. When the ceremony began, the reverends let Palomas, the village chief's son, pass first. They explained he had to place his hand on a crystal sphere. After this, any talent he possessed would appear written on the metal plate behind them. Palomas shyly approached and placed his hand on the crystal ball. A faint light illuminated the sphere and his attributes were written on the metal plate. Basically, the stats that appeared in my grimoire appeared. The reverend read the plate aloud. Palomas had a talent for being a merchant. This made his father quite happy, who couldn't stop celebrating. My grimoire appeared before me with a new message. People's attributes are shown as ranks instead of numbers. Although my grimoire was in front of me, in plain sight, no one else could see it. I quite like this useful game configuration. The next child to come up also placed his hand on the crystal ball, but this time it didn't light up, nor did his stats appear. Apparently, not everyone could get a talent. One by one, the other children continued to go to the crystal ball. Some obtained the talent, while others did not have the same luck. Throughout the ceremony, the highest rank I saw was, apparently, you couldn't get higher ranks without a talent. The last ones left were Krina and I. When it was her turn, Krina didn't wait for them to finish saying her name to come to the front. Completely excited, she placed her hand on the crystal ball and it lit up much more than with any other child. This was a pretty surprising event. Gerda asked the Reverend to read her talent. Unable to hide his amazement, the Reverend said it was a miracle. Despite being a servant, Krina had obtained the talent of Sword Lord, one of the best talents that exist. She didn't seem to understand the importance of her talent, while all the adults, especially Gerda, were completely surprised and excited. Although Krina couldn't stop thinking that she had dreamed of being a swordswoman, this event did not surprise me. I already suspected it. All these years playing together, I could tell she had a supernatural strength. Finally, it was my turn. I was excited to think that my parents would finally find out I am a summoner. I placed my hand on the crystal ball and the bright light illuminated the entire room. The surprise of this blinding glow made me fall to the ground. Although I wasn't hurt, as I am quite used to taking hits from my training with Krina. As a mere servant, Ruden couldn't read, so we both excitedly asked the Reverend what the plaque said. Unfortunately, the Reverend said that I don't have any talent. This had to be a mistake. Not only was I reborn as a summoner in this game, but the sphere also produced a strong blinding light. When I checked the plaque myself, I found there was an error in the text. This event angered me a lot because of the developer. Now no one would know I am a summoner. My father calmly took me by the shoulders and we both went home. My mother and siblings welcomed us excitedly, only to receive the news that I had no talent. Despite that, no one seemed disappointed. They accepted it calmly, and my father told me I would always be his pride and joy. In this new life, we are so poor we don't have a bathtub, but I feel happy to have been reborn in this family. Before sleeping, I reflected on what I had just learned. I was the only one playing in Hell mode. Everyone at the ceremony was 5, so they must also be level 1 like me. Surely the ranks reflect how much they can grow, so if I had rank E, it meant my progress would be much slower than normal. That would make anyone despair and hate the game. But that wasn't happening to me. I was tired of easy and mediocre games. This was my chance to prove that difficult games were better. The next day we went to Krina's to celebrate her achievement. On the way, Teresa and I noticed Ruden was acting a bit strange. When we got to her house, Krina excitedly told me that Sword Lord was better than Swordsman. I already knew this, but I faked surprise anyway. Matilda showed that the village chief gave them expensive liquor as a celebration. Both Ruden and Gerda were eager to drink it, but they also seemed upset, although neither wanted to admit it. Finally, Gerda revealed the reason for her annoyance. Ruden wanted to cut ties with them. Dad then admitted he wanted to cut ties with them because Krina's talent would lead her to move up in rank. She could even become a noble, so they should stop hanging out with servants. To lighten the situation, I asked Krina to calm them down. She drew her sword, but before she could act, Matilda and Teresa stopped them with punches. The speed with which they calmed down surprised me a lot. I asked Matilda if they always fought like that. She told me that they used to fight all the time, but since they became parents, they both stopped. She also said the four were childhood friends, and when a new town was announced, they all decided to make the journey together. The houses of both families had the same design because they built them at the same time, working together. Sometime later, Gerda received the news that the Order of Knights wanted to see Krina. The four of us returned to the village for the event, but we weren't the only ones. More people also wanted to witness Krina, the Sword Lord and the Order of Knights. Togora, a boy from the ceremony, approached me, spoke very rudely, and said that without talent I shouldn't visit the town. Krina defended me and would have bitten him if her father hadn't stopped her. When the Order of Knights arrived, everyone became very excited. Krina was the most excited to see them. 3 years have passed since we played knights, and she finally had the chance to meet real knights. As they greeted the captain, something seemed to bother Gerda. He kept saying that Krina had never touched a sword before and wouldn't stand a chance. The captain insisted that if she were a sword lord, there would be no problem. If he refused the request, they would be accused of falsifying the results of the evaluation ceremony, something that could even be punished by death. To prove that her talent was legitimate, Krina had to face the vice captain in a duel. Gerda was very worried about his daughter, but the captain threatened to kill her and the rest of her family if he didn't accept the duel. When she saw a real sword, Krina got excited and said she'd do it. In an arena facing her opponent, Krina enthusiastically introduced herself with the title of knight and challenged Lebrand. She began with a great leap and attacked with strong, accurate strikes, though Lebrand seemed to have no trouble blocking her attacks. Then, Lebrand began to counterattack, and when Krina's guard was down, he kicked her so hard that she crashed into the wall. Seeing this, we all got worried, so the guards had to subdue her so we wouldn't do anything. Krina got to her feet, a light around her body, and continued the fight. This time hitting much faster and more powerfully than before. As soon as she cut Lebrand's sword, the duel ended and Krina was named the victor. This event was celebrated by all the other villagers. The happiest person was Gerda. He even shed a tear of joy, happy that his daughter would not be executed. The captain went to Gerda and congratulated him on having a sword lord. Besides apologizing for being rude, he then invited Gerda to talk about Krina's future. He wasn't sure about going, so he allowed us to accompany him. We met in the huge house of the village leader, although I didn't understand why Togora and his father were also there. I guess they didn't want to be overshadowed by the sword lord. What interested me most was the delicious fruit in front of me, which I decided to keep in my clothes to take to my mother and brother. The captain of the knights introduced himself by the name of Zeno. He was sent to determine if there was a true sword lord. 3 years ago, a sword lord appeared in a count's family, but his skills did not correspond to those of a sword lord. They re-evaluated him and found that he was only a swordsman. That is why now they had to make sure carefully. He also announced that the village would no longer have the village chief's name, but would now be named Krina Village. A request that the village lord could not refuse as it was a direct order from the baron. When talking about Krina's future, the captain told Gerda to continue raising her as a sword lord, and when she turns 12, she will study at the academy and then serve the royal family. Togora also showed his interest in studying at the academy and becoming a knight, so the captain said that an instructor would be sent to the village to evaluate him. If he worked hard, he could also get in. When the captain noticed my dark hair and eyes, my father immediately introduced me and Gerda introduced Ruden. Upon hearing his name, the captain recognized him instantly. He was a legend in the village for his deeds. Besides, the baron is very fond of the great boar's meat. Before we said goodbye, the captain praised him as a hero for taking on the most difficult role in the Huns. Upon returning home, Ruden mentioned that Krina could become a hero. But even servants like him could be recognized for their achievements. With this, he encouraged me to move forward and show what we are worth. Although, well, I chose hell mode after all. Then I showed him the fruits I picked for my mom and Mash, and Dad showed me he did the same. He also took some fruits. Thanks for watching the video. Subscribe and like to help the channel continue to grow more. After a few days of experimenting and summoning creatures, I received some excellent news. In my grimoire, I observed that my summoning skill had finally leveled up. With this, I also received the power-up ability, which allowed me to strengthen my summons. Also, just as I expected, I was also able to unlock F-rank creatures. I was looking forward to fusing them to get new ones. Maybe I could even get a dragon. That would be great. My inventory had also been improved. Before I could only store 20 cards, but now I could store 30 cards. This meant that the buffs I received would also increase. It took me 2 years of hard training to level up my summoning skill, but it was totally worth it. During this time, my mother, Teresa, has gotten pregnant again. I can't wait to meet my new sibling. After eating, I offered to help wash the dishes. I want to hurry so I can experiment with the new upgrades I received. My little brother Mesh was anxious to know if we were going to have a brother or a sister, although it is hard to know with this world's medicine. Teresa said that from her gentle kicks, she could tell it would be a girl. Roden wanted to choose her name as he did with Mash and me, but Teresa reminded him that they had promised that if it was a girl, she could choose. Suddenly, I received a notification from my grimoire. I thought my MP was full again, but it was a message from Elmia, saying her name out loud. Got me scolded. In this world, it was frowned upon to say God's name without a reason. It was a bad time to get the notification. To change the conversation, I mentioned that Ruden's arm had healed from his old scar. He said it was from passing the Gods test during today's hunt. He described it as a special moment that usually happens occasionally when hunting. A sudden wave of energy that eliminates wounds and exhaustion. I guess that was his way of describing the moment they level up. I can't see his stats, but I am sure he must be very strong. On the other hand, even though my summoning skill had leveled up, I was still only level 1. To make matters worse, to gain experience I had to kill some monsters. The problem is servants are forbidden to leave town without permission. The only exception was the hunt. Though I tried to convince Ruden to let me join, he stopped me. Hunting was not for a child like me, it was dangerous and some had even died. While Mash was fast asleep, I took the chance to check the message that had just arrived. It turned out to be good news. They fixed the problem with the defective text. It said they sent an oracle with the Great Pope to inform everyone. They also sent a file with the unprocessed data. Both my MP and my intelligence were CES rank, which was logical considering I was a summoner. Finally, the moment I'd waited for since afternoon arrived, the time to experiment powering up the cards. The first one I chose was Denka. By doing so, his stats were improved, though it seemed that powering up creatures didn't affect my own upgrades. Then I summoned Denka. His appearance was slightly different due to the empowerment. Although it didn't make him bigger, Teresa came in to check if I was asleep. Seeing Denka, she got so scared she crushed him again. The next morning, Roden went to work as he did every morning. Meanwhile, I stayed home helping hang the freshly washed clothes. I spent all night summoning and unsummoning creatures and learned that the upgrades on the cards didn't disappear. My plan was to empower all the cards in my inventory whenever my mana refilled. After hanging the clothes, I couldn't stop thinking how all the fusion combinations I tried didn't work. This time I tried fusing the insect and F-bird cards. Surprisingly, the resulting fusion was of the grass type. The best thing about this new fusion was it had a mana booster. This let me make more cards each day. This will certainly reduce the time it takes me to level up. This monster looked like an apple, so I named him Apo. This summon was not useful for combat. It only had the aroma ability. When I asked it to use its ability, it went into the ground and its sprout began to emit a pleasant aroma. Teresa started to approach, so I tried to turn Apo back into a card, but I couldn't. Luckily, Teresa didn't find seeing Apo strange and just started to smell its delicious aroma. Like every afternoon, I trained with Krina again. She attacked me non-stop as usual, and though I wasn't at her level, she said I had become tougher. That makes sense since my sword skill was at level 3 and expanding my inventory allowed me to improve my stamina and attack. I wish Aroma had some kind of combat ability. So far, the only creature with any combat ability was a wolf-like summon that I named Fido. He can use the bite attack, but I haven't had the chance to try it out yet. At dusk, I threw stones at the tree as I have been doing until now. After having thrown more than 20,000 stones, the tree had a dent where I hit it, but it hadn't helped me level up. Mash also threw stones with me, something he found quite boring. I was already too busy taking care of Mash and helping Mom with the housework. Not to mention, I had to be focused on increasing my summoning level. Continuing to throw rocks at the tree was not worth it. I wanted to stop practicing my throw skill, but I disliked the idea that I was just one more throw away from leveling up. Outside the house, I made a garden by creating a Po. Using its aroma skill, I found I could cut mana recovery time from 6 to 5 hours. Thanks to this, I could now perform more summons. When night came, Dad didn't come home. Only Mash could sleep. Both Mom and I were still waiting for him to return. Some screams outside the house worried us a lot. Going outside, we came across a chilling scene. Gerda and other men were carrying Ruden in a wheelbarrow. His condition was quite delicate. He was full of blows and bruises, in addition to a large wound in his abdomen that seemed to have healed right away. Gerda told us that a wild boar had pierced his stomach. They kept him alive thanks to some healing herbs he bought, the mulsi flower. This flower was expensive, but he could buy it with money the knight's captain gave him as an apology for what happened with Krina. The other hunters were upset about what happened. They said it was the fault of some commoners. The loud screams woke Mash up, so as a good older brother, I calmed him down and took him back to his bed. I didn't understand why they said it was the commoners' fault, so I asked Gerda. Apparently, a few days ago they received a call from the chief asking to let some commoners join the boar hunt. The boar meat is valuable. Though the Baron takes most of it, the hunters who took part would share the rest and could trade it for salt or other essential goods. Previously, no commoners volunteered for the hunts as it is very dangerous and there are casualties every year. However, the serfs do it because they have no other choice. It is their way of making a living. This time the commoners joined in because they heard there was a hero among the serfs. Hearing this, I instinctively thought of Krenna, but they were actually referring to Rudin because Lord Zenov called him a legend in front of everyone. Somehow, this became a sort of official endorsement and the commoners thought they'd be safe with Rudin present. Both Rudin and Gerda disagreed with the idea of the commoners joining the hunt, but they couldn't oppose a direct order from the chief. During the training before the hunt, only the serfs put all their effort into it. Instead, the commoners just watched as the serfs trained. For the hunt, they got the easiest job keeping the boar's attention. But as soon as the huge beast started chasing them, they panicked. The boar almost killed one of the commoners, but Rudin stepped in, taking the attack instead. That night, I stayed with Rudin and Teresia trying to help in any way I could. The next morning, Rudin woke up with a start, thinking he was still fighting the boar. Although this should be a happy moment, I couldn't help but wonder what I've been doing until now. I've only cared about increasing my power, but what is power without a purpose? For the other people in this world, this is not a game, they're doing everything they can to survive. Gerda entered the house carrying a portion of the meat that was due to Rudin. He was a very good and kind person. He even promised they'd make sure they were okay during the winter. At that moment, I also promised them I'd do everything I could to help and keep the family safe. First, I went to the well to fetch some water. This would be hard for any other kid, but for me it is simple. I invested all the upgrades in my physical stats. Although that made me give up the MP upgrades, I didn't care if the others found out how strong I am. The time has come to stop pretending. The village already had a rising hero, Krina. It didn't matter if a talentless servant like me drew some attention. In the afternoon, Gerda taught me to harvest potatoes. Seeing that I could pull out a whole row with one hand, he was impressed. He didn't expect me to be that strong. Although we did the work of growing and harvesting them, the Baron keeps half. The village chief came with the commoner that saved, who brought a basket of fruit to apologize. It bothered me a lot that he thought an apology was enough to fix the damage caused. Instead, Rodan forgave him immediately and even advised him to be careful on the next hunt. Teresia, however, scolded him for his mistake that almost cost Rodan his life. The other servants also went to congratulate Rodan, who had recovered. Having the best parents in the world definitely made me proud. After this, I went to the crops to make a circle on the ground and then I summoned several hoppers. Upon leaving the book, all of them jumped right at my face. I thought that by using their provoke skill, I could lure ducks and wild birds to traps and survive the winter. After a while, it seemed to give no results. I think the range of their ability wasn't wide enough. When I was about to give up, a large bird approached the traps. This was an alvajaron, the bird I was named Alan after. This bird was too big. It didn't fit in the traps and also started to destroy the hoppers. I thought of sneaking away, but I saw my enhancement skill was at level 2. This made the stats of my summons increase from 10 to 20. Remembering that I upgraded every creature in my inventory, I thought I could at least try. I threw a rock at it, as I've practiced, and started attacking it with my wooden sword. Surprisingly, I was able to land a strong blow. Then I summoned several Fidos to bite it. It seemed to be working, but soon the bird defeated all the Fidos. I tried to fight again, but this time my stamina and strength had decreased. I lost several buffs for each defeated summon. This was one of the problems of being a summoner. The bird had me cornered. If I didn't do something, it could kill me. Thanks for watching. Comment part 3 if you liked the video, subscribe and like to help the channel grow.
Its powerful beak was inches from my face. The only thing stopping it from tearing me apart was my wooden sword. But I knew if I did nothing, it would kill me. I was desperate to come up with a solution. Suddenly, an idea hit me. I had to summon Chi. Chi was a kind of giant leech. I had never tried it before, but I was sure it could drain energy. Luckily, I was right. As soon as they started sucking the Albaheron's neck, it began to weaken. Losing my summons had also weakened me, so I summoned an army of Fidos and Chis to counterattack. The Chis drained its energy, while the Fidos attacked it with their strong bite. To finish it, I jumped and hit the Albaheron with all my might. A screen appeared before me, showing the Albaheron Albageron was dead, and I'd gotten 100 experience points. Killing my first monster filled me with an indescribable energy. When I got home, everyone was surprised to see me arrive carrying a dead Albageron. I couldn't tell them of my summons, so I said the Albageron landed near me and I surprised it. Although it was partly true. Rodan noticed a cut on my cheek, but somehow I convinced him I was okay. While checking the bird, he noticed phytobite marks. To keep him from finding out my lie, I had to pretend I fought the Albageron on pure instinct, even biting it if needed. Next was to bleed the Albageron. Gerda was kind enough to do it for us and show me how it's done. She also explained Albagerons weigh about 60 kilograms, which drops to 20 kilograms after being bled and dried. Also, only half of it is edible meat. Albageron wings can also be sold for a good sum. Too bad I had to give most of it to the upper class. Apparently, the 60% tax also applied to wild monsters. Gerda also reached into the big bird and pulled out a magic stone, another valuable taxable item. To help, Gerda mentioned a kid like me shouldn't normally hunt monsters, which only happened because Rudin was badly hurt. This was something we could use to negotiate a larger portion with the chief. At the village chief's mansion, he was so happy to see the Albageron he couldn't look away. Gerda then told them that we would give them the wings as a tax, but we would keep the rest. He disliked our request and mentioned that the Baron had asked for more meat this year. That was surely the reason the chief insisted they take commoners on the hunt. Gerda added the magic stone to the negotiation. The chief still didn't like this, so the two of us started our act. We both made him see that if he hadn't insisted on taking commoners on the hunt, Rudin would not have been hurt. Now, because of him, my family could go hungry this winter. Our performance was perfect. The village chief understood his mistake and allowed us to keep the bird's meat. But this was only the beginning of my plan. What I really wanted was to convince him to let me keep the meat of all the Albagerons I hunt. Gerda helped by saying they are very difficult to hunt. Thanks to this, the chief let me keep the meat of any birds I could hunt, not knowing I could get more with my summons. Since then, I kept using the same strategy that had worked for me. This time, Hopper lured the Albagerons. When they arrived, I had Chai drain their energy and Fido bite them. This left the birds weakened enough to be defeated with a single blow from my wooden sword. Since I started hunting Salvajerones, this was the first time I beat them without losing any of my summons, a sign that my skills were improving. The message that I had gained experience appeared again, but this time another notification appeared. I had gained enough experience to level up to level 2. I immediately checked my stats. My stats increase was only 60% of what it should have been. Still, I was excited to have leveled up. It took me 6 years, but I finally reached my first level up. At home, Rudin was surprised to see me with 2 Albagerons. He also seemed to want to tell me something, but didn't say what. As usual, I kept training with Sina, but it wasn't the same. I was more agile. His blows missed me. But while I was distracted, thinking of killing more Albagerons for another level up, he snuck up behind me and hit me. That night, I finally gathered my parents to tell them the truth. Or part of it. I told them that at 1 year old, an oracle from the Maya spoke to me. "Young Alan, I will bless you with power and wisdom." For that reason, I was smarter and stronger than any child my age. But the message continued. "You will face trials beyond what even 100 men could accomplish. Use your blessings of power and wisdom to overcome them." Teresi worried when she heard that God had given me a hard trial. Instead, Rodan told me what he had wanted to tell me since the afternoon. Because I didn't have the scar on my face, he knew I had passed a trial of the Mia. Teresi asked me about what happened at the evaluation ceremony. Then I told them that the Oracle contacted me again a couple of months ago and told me that my attributes were classified as low because of the slow progression of my trials. And it appeared that I had no talent, because mine was too new to be recognized. Rodan asked what my talent was, but I preferred not to tell him yet. I didn't want people to get the wrong idea about my gift of summoning. Besides, I also couldn't tell them that I'm reincarnated. Teresi hugged me and took pity on me for the hard trial God had given me and for how hard I had been working, throwing rocks every day and hunting huge monsters. Despite how hard the trial was, I told them with conviction that I would keep trying to pass the tests and prove I am worthy. Rudin accepted my decision and offered his help if I ever ran into trouble. He also suggested I keep everything I had told him a secret. It would be bad if someone found out and accused me of being a false prophet. Although he asked to tell only Gerda, as he always boasts of having a sword lord as a son. When winter came, the whole town was covered in snow. Gerda was kind enough to accompany me to town to trade the Albigeron's meat while he traded his wild boar meat. On the way, he told me that hunting had become easier without the commoners getting in the way. Since the topic came up, I asked him what the difference was between serfs and commoners. Basically, it's about social status and taxes. The 60% rule did not apply to commoners. Instead, they had the house tax. They must pay 3 gold coins per adult and 1 per child each year. Since we were talking about that, I was able to ask the question I was most curious about. Was there a way for serfs to become commoners? Gerda explained that they had to pay a tribute of 10 gold coins for each family member. In our case, it would be a total of 50 gold coins. There were also times when the Baron rewarded people with commoner status, but I wasn't sure if that was true. When we got to the first shop, Gerda exchanged 5 packs of wild boar meat for salt, so I did the same with the Albigeron meat. After this, we went to trade it for fruit at the market, and finally went for firewood. The next time I went to the village alone to do the exchange and do market research, what I found out was that a bundle of Albigeron meat could be exchanged for a bag of salt, 4 momo fruits, and firewood for 4 days. A bundle of meat can be sold for 1 silver coin. So to get the 50 gold coins I needed for my family and me to become commoners, I needed to hunt 500 Albigerons. Such an action would take me a couple of years, which was quite simple for an expert player like me. Then I went looking for medicine that could raise MP. The seller said he didn't have anything that sophisticated. Then I asked about healing medicines. Surprisingly, there were many healing herbs, so not to forget them, I tried using my notebook to draw them. I wasn't sure if it would work, but apparently I could also draw whatever I imagined. I wanted to know what the Moyer's flower was, but when I asked the seller, he answered with a mix of worry and anger. He was still upset about the time he sold the only one he had. A month ago, Gerda came in desperate and demanded the best medicine. The seller said that the Moyer's flower cost 5 gold coins. Gerda begged him to sell it for 3 gold coins and promised to return to pay the rest. The seller agreed, but he remained worried until he was paid what was missing. As a thank you and apology for selling the medicine that saved Rudin's life, I gave him a pack of meat. On the way back, I saw some spears in a store window. These cost 50 silver coins. I couldn't afford it for the moment, but I only had to hunt 5 Albigerons to get that amount. Degora saw me and with a rather haughty attitude asked me what I was doing outside his family's store. Apparently, his father was the blacksmith. I wanted to leave and avoid trouble, but as soon as I turned around, Degora hit me and said he would only let me pass if I agreed to be his subordinate. I normally avoid these kinds of conflicts in video games because they don't grant experience, but this time I decided to accept the challenge. I pointed my wooden sword at him and told him I would wait for him to get his weapon to fight. Degora returned with a wooden stick and tried to hit me, but I dodged all the blows. Unlike my games with Krina, this was no challenge. After defeating him, I said I'd return to his shop to negotiate and I left. Some time passed. Rodan had healed and could remove his bandages. Also, my little sister Milla was born. Days later, Degora came to Krina's house to face me again, but dodging his attacks was still quite simple. Marsh also trained with Krina. She was quite gentle with him. But with me, she always attacked with all her strength. Even so, Marsh was doing quite well. He might even have talent as a spear user. That night, Rodan came home with Gerda. The chief had summoned him and asked to increase the boars hunted from 10 to 15. For that, they had to let the commoners join again. If they didn't provide 15 boars, he'd recruit more serfs from elsewhere. That meant less land to distribute, and serfs who couldn't hunt could be stripped of their land. To worsen the situation, he asked them to hunt 20 boars next year. Hearing this, I suggested that even if they met the request, the demand would keep increasing and they'd end up recruiting more serfs anyway. To avoid this, they should let the commoners participate too. I reminded them that I have the wisdom granted by the Mia, although in reality, I also had the experience of making my video game characters as strong as possible and integrating rookies into groups to safely gain experience. So this time, I asked them to let me help. Thanks for making it to the end. Comment part 5 if you liked the video. Subscribe and like to help the channel continue to grow.